everybody, it's Brooke. We're zoomed up real close today. I know my camera's kind of crappy, but hopefully you'll be able to see, because we're going to make these beautiful little dangles. Now, they're very, very shiny, so it's kind of hard to see. Whoops. Maybe if I hold one up separately, like that, you can see it. Oh yeah, you can see that. These are so much fun, totally inspired by Artymaze. That's Andrea. They do use some jewelry making tools, but I figured a lot of us have dabbled in jewelry, so maybe you have them, or you can improvise. So these are fun. This one's just made with a circle of paper. This one is made with a napkin, and these two are made with Finnabair tissue paper. I love this one. I like the torn edge. I don't know if you can see if it's picking it up, kind of. And then this one is just made with a rectangle of paper from one of Andrea's kits. I don't know if you can see it terribly well. It's quite legible in person, but that glare is something, huh? Ultra thick embossing powder. Very shiny. So let's just get to it, shall we? I'll try to remember to keep checking myself because we are zoomed in mighty close. So what I used is a ring mandrel, that's one of these guys, for jewelry making, and some jewelry wire, which I just had. Oh, here we go. This is the last little piece that I had, so I have to make sure I don't lose it. This is 18 gauge, I think. It wasn't in its packaging, so I can't be 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident 20 or 18 gauge would work just fine. So I'm going to take this. It should be about a 6-inch piece. This is longer than that. And I'm going to make a 1-inch circle in the middle. Well, not quite in the middle. One piece can be shorter than the other. Whoops. This is zoomed in. We're just going to make a tight circle, pushing the wire against the mandrel or a dowel, or, you know, this glue stick looks like it's about a 1-inch diameter. Let's see. Here's our circle of tissue paper. Whoop. Yep, that is darn close. So your glue stick could also work. You just want to get a nice smooth circle, which I have managed to mess up because I stopped doing it in the middle. Don't stop in the middle. Getting it pressed right up against that plastic and twisting it. And that's 2 full twists. And I am almost down at the bottom because that is where it measures an inch. It's a size 14¼ So that is just about where you want to be. We've got our nice tight wrap in the back. And I'm just going to pull that off, set that aside, and our taller one I'm going to stick straight up. And our shorter one, what I want to do is bend it over, and this is purely just decorative. You don't have to do this at all if you don't want to. I'm going to pull it over and cut it a little bit shorter. And when I cut the wire, I cover it with my hand, I close my eyes, and I turn my head because I have flying wire fear. And we're just going to wrap it around this circle. Just like a little vine look. I like it. It also gives you an extra place up here to hook in another dangle if you want to. If you want to get completely extra. So I'm just wrapping that around. I like how it looks. So I do it. And again, just trimming that with my flush cut scissors. Now the other thing that I used that not everyone may have, I would assume you could just use a block of wood and a regular hammer, but I have a jeweler's anvil and my little jewelry hammer. So let's make some noise. I'm just going to tap this. This flattens it out so that the embossing powder can have a place to land. The other thing is that tapping it makes the metal a little harder. However, if you tap it too much, it gets very brittle, so you don't want to go overboard, even though it's very satisfying whacking that little metal ring. So now what we're going to do, I've got my plastic little tray with my embossing powder in it, That looks pretty flat. And here we go. So we'll start coating our tissue circle. And again, that's just some Finnabair tissue paper that I punched with my 1-inch punch, and then I tore the top of it off. I didn't do that on camera because it's kind of tedious, because as we discussed, my poor little circle punch is on its last legs. So I've got my Versamark. You can use Versamark, or you could use Distress Embossing dauber, whichever you like, whichever you have. Make sure I got the tissue facing the right way up. Get that in there. Dip it in our embossing powder. Okay, and let's see here. Get that wire out of the way. Here's my heat gun, and I've got my little squeezers. They do get kind of junked up with all the embossing powder. It doesn't break my heart because I'm not a huge fan of squeezers. I can't figure out how to make them work right. It's too backwards for me. So if they get a little gunked up, I don't particularly care. At the end of the project, I can just go in, heat up the end, and wipe it real quick with paper towel, and that gets mostly everything off. Now you can either work really quickly, drop that back in the embossing powder while it's still wet, or you can just go back and put it in the Versamark again. Whichever you prefer. But redipping is just fine. And I would say 3 or 4 coats before the ring goes on it, just to get that base built up. Whoop. And don't put your heat tool into your tray. Rookie mistake. Working this close is not what I'm used to. Okay, so that looks pretty thick. We'll take our little ring that we made. And I don't think it matters which is the top. No, it does to me. I want the torn part at the top. And that has melted down some, so we can just reheat it. Holding the wire down, reheating the embossing powder, which is plastic, obviously. Get that right where we want. Oh, nope, don't knock it off. And I'll just use the squeezers and push that down a little bit. Make sure it's right where you want it. And then what you can do is just sprinkle some more on top. Just a little pinch. Oh, and Andrea, I forgot. Andrea used Distress ink in black soot and inked that edge that was torn so that it looked like it was burned. Apparently, she actually did burn some edges, but had some unpleasant results. So she went with the inked look. We'll just repeat that a couple times. Make sure we get it good and embedded. I do have a heat-resistant mat down. The handicraft mat, which also lets the embossing powder just peel right off. And this is a good time if you want to add anything to it. I was thinking maybe some green embossing tinsel would be fun. And this is just, I don't even know. Oh, it is. It's a Ranger, an old Ranger. Well, it costs $3.50, so really old. And just put a little teeny pinch. I had little tiny spoons to do that with. No idea where they went. So it's fingers all the way, baby. Okay, and we'll just let that harden. I will skip this part, cut it out, fast forward, something. All right then, that hardly took any time at all. So I'm going to very carefully, it's still kind of warm. I'm going to peel it off our heat-resistant mat, I hope. It's actually still really warm. Maybe we didn't do it long enough. There we go. Okay. So there it is. It's as cute as can be. It did cover up our torn spot, but that's all right. So I would wait until it is completely cool, but we'll go ahead and speed it up for the sake of the video. And you can just trim the excess that kind of oozed out. Just cut that right off. And I think it's so cute. I love that green glitter. I'm telling you, Christmas time, can't have enough, I think. Oh, and that torn part is starting to emerge a little bit. Can you guys see it? Very hard with all the glare. Right over here. Almost think it wants to get heated one more time. One more layer of embossing powder. But just so you don't have to sit there and watch it, we won't do that. We'll assume it's good. Okay, so I've trimmed off all of the little extra bits. And then to make the dangle part, I've got my handy dandy beads right here. And I like this tissue paper because it did have a red cast. I don't know if you can tell. It had some red printing on it. So I thought that looked kind of cool. And I've got my little box of Christmas beads. Got these on clearance last year after Christmas. How about if we just put a red one on? Is one red one sufficient? Yeah, it'll be good. We'll put on a red one. And maybe one more. Because one is just that. So what the heck? What else have we got in here? Oh, we've got a crystal one. Slippery little rascal. And we've got some spacers. So let's put a spacer on too. Why not? You only live once. So there's our little spacer. And there's a crystal. Very sparkly. I like sparkle. Get on there. Huh, easier said than done, right? Why is it that things that are the simplest, the second you get on camera, turn that camera on and everything gets very hard? Okay, so I just have those strung on, like that. And I will take flat nose pliers and bend my wire at a 90-degree angle. And then take my round nose pliers, put them in, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch. Can you guys see? Wrap this around halfway. Move my pliers back in and finish wrapping that so it's back at a 45-degree angle. No, is that a 45? 90-degree angle. Yeah, that. Okay, and then I'll hold that loop with my flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to wrap that wire around. You could just wrap it around the top and snip it off, but I'm going to bring it down and wrap it around these beads because I like how that looks. And there goes that. Cut that off. Nice and flush so nothing's sharp. And then readjust my little eye. You guys see? There it is. Oops. The back of the dangle doesn't look that awesome, but I don't think it matters. We have that extra space where we could put another dangle if we wanted. And we have our hook for hanging. So then I would just take a paper clip or a safety pin or a bulb pin like this. I have a little rusted bulb pin that I got from Sweet Diane at my old barn door. And I love them. I can't rust stuff myself because I think that smells terrible. Isn't that stupid? But Diane does beautiful work if you need rusty bits. I will, of course, link her down below. And that is it on that one. Isn't that adorable? So cute. So I did want to put some of these on the December daily that is now available for sale. And it will have some of these little beauties dangling off the sides. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you was if you don't want to do the circles, you don't have the tools, don't have wire, this is just one of Andrea's little quotes May you never be too grown up to search the skies on Christmas Eve. I love that. And you can do exactly the same thing with this. Dip it in your Versamark. Just print it on an inkjet printer on copy paper. Might be better to do it on cardstock. It might be a little heavier and give it a little more stability, but the printer paper seemed to work beautifully. So I've got my ultra thick embossing powder over here. And I just did that, dipped it in there, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We'll heat it up. So they're super fun to make, and anything you can punch pretty much can go on the inside of those circles. I just snapped the other night while Mark and I watched a movie and made a whole bunch of wire circles. Good TV watching project. See, squeezers. It's beyond me. Get the tools out of the way here. That's what's in my way. Bring our embossing powder back over. So I'm doing exactly the same thing. Just dipping it and reheating it. Oh, it's hard to work in this little tiny space. Whoa, forgot my tweezers, see? Come back here, you. There we go. Yeah, watching embossing powder melt for me never gets old. It's just fun. And we can grab it, throw it back in there. Looks like it had cooled off a little bit, but that's okay. We'll Versamark it. I think that was pretty gooey. Yep, we got a good dip on that one. Shake off the excess. Alright, I got the squeezers off of it because we're going to let this one cool for a minute. On the one I made before, let me grab that, I used some vintage photo embossing glaze. That's what the brown is. And it was a little dark, I think, but I do love the gold border on it. So I think I might skip the embossing glaze unless I have a lighter color. I have antique linen. Let's try that. That'll just be a little bit of a hint. Ooh. Is it still sealed? Oh, it's still sealed. It's brandy new. And that should just be a little hint of color. Where is my X-Acto? Well, that was an epic battle between me and the embossing glaze. I did eventually win. So, let's try that. I guess what we could do is, let's heat this one up one more time and dip it. Yep, that's me and the squeezers. Okay, and then we'll drop it back in our ultra thick embossing powder. That's not a glob in my embossing powder. It's some beads that have been stuck there for many, many years. And I can't get them off. Oops, now my cord is wrapped around the drawer. There we go. Once it melts and starts spreading out, it'll cover the divot where your tweezers were, so that works out really well. Let's see if we can just get a little bit of the embossing glaze on there. just a pinch. Start little and see how it goes. See if we like it. Well, that's disappearing to almost nothing. Put on a little more. And this is just purely for fun. No other reason than to jazz it up a little bit. You can certainly see right through it, so the letters are not being obscured. Put that lid on before anything crazy happens. Oh, it does show some. I like it. I like how that looks. When this cools off, I'll pull it up so you can see it. Okay, and then the last thing that I did on that one is, let's get out just a piece of paper. Oops, that was still wet. That was genius. It was a genius move. And I've got some Recollections tinsel embossing powder in gold. So nothing fancy. Again, it's got to be 10 years old. Just need a little tiny bit of it. Well, maybe that's too tiny. It doesn't matter how much you put out because you're going to end up just funneling it right back into the jar anyway. So let's see how this guy is doing. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is just dip the edges. So I'm taking my Versamark, just like I would ink to emboss it, or to, what am I trying to say? Not emboss it. To age it, distress it. And then I'm going to dip it into our gold powder on those two sides. Close up our Versamark. And holding it, our tweezers to keep it from blowing away. Just going to emboss those edges. Oops, it's escaping. Get back over here. Run away. Can you see that timing? As I chase it around the desk madly. That just entertains me endlessly. I don't know why. I'm a simpleton, apparently. Okay, and let that cool down and harden. I just think the gold adds a nice little twinkly touch. And again, I know it's hard to see it because the embossing powder is just so shiny. But when this one's done, we'll hold it up also. So take it back over to the Versamark. Get some on the edges we didn't catch last time. That would be the other two. Get some gold on there. And once again, hold it in place. Let's move this. Try to avert disaster. Scoot it over so hopefully you can see it. There we go. Oh man, I was trying to get rid of our marks, and instead I just about got rid of all of our embossing powder. But, again, not a big deal. What I will do, I'll pull this out again, grab this, and we'll just re-dip it. It did ruin our gold edges, so I'll put those back on, but I won't make you watch that, because, well, you've probably seen enough. This is just too small a space. There's a reason I don't zoom in when I'm filming. throw it back in here. I just want to get it good and coated so you guys can see how pretty it looks. And what I'll do when we're done is go back in, put some more of the antique linen on, because my little upside down trick there pretty much took all of the antique linen off, and I'll redip the edges. But what I can do is hold this one up. Oop, put the kickstand on our heat tool. I can hold this up so you can see it. Isn't that pretty? Just love how that looks. And then I would take my tiniest little hole punch, it's this guy, and go, depending on the way you want it to hang off your dangle. Okay, I'm not going to mess with that. It's hot and I'm going to ruin it. I would just take my little tiny hole punch a hole in one of the corners, and string a jump ring through it, just like I did for this one. Put a jump ring through there, and then I've got a bulb pin. I really do like how the vintage photo looks sort of burnt. So that is that. I will mess with this one and fix it off camera because, well, that's just tedious. So that is how to make these fun little dangles. Again, inspired by Artymaze. Give it a shot. They're really fun. And if you don't have the tools to make the wire one, just make some of the square ones. Punch circles out with your circle punch and do this technique with them. Super, super fun. They're so lightweight. They'll add no bulk at all to your journal. And you can use anything you want. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. And I hope you give it a try. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.